is Ying Li. Welcome back to How China Works. There is an increasingly visible group of young global citizens from China going all over the world, exploring and creating the coolest things. They're like a curious seeds, but with great self-determination and change-making spirit, using the wildest dreams and best modern solutions to connect people, not just creatively, but deeply. Today, our guest is XIAONING, who is the founder of Viva La Vida. She is also the shepherd of G20 Young Entrepreneur Alliance and vice president of APAC Voices of the Future. She initiated Viva La Vida in January 2018 as a street experiment, and within a year, she expanded into more than 30 different countries as an impactful global art project. Viva invites people to create a drawing to answer a simple but powerful question. What is your life? To have authentic connection with themselves and explore the meaning of life. I have been fascinated about this idea for quite a long time, and I can't wait to really learn more about it. So a big welcome to our show, XIAONING.
Hi, Ying. Hi, everyone.
So can you share with us a little bit the story of Viva La Vida? What is it? And how did it get started? And what does it strive to be?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. So Viva La Vida is an art project that I created in 2018 and inspired by the country of Mexico and the artist Frida Kahlo. So what it does is pretty simple. So we ask people a very simple question, what is your life? But ask people to draw a picture to answer that question. So till now, we have already collected more than thousands of drawings from people all over the world to answer this same question. And also we have hosted events in more than 30 different countries to encourage people to explore their authentic selves and also connect with other people in a deep way. So as you just asked about the starting story of Viva La Vida. So actually that's kind of because of the movie Coco. So I'm sure a lot of people have watched this movie. It basically talk about the Day of the Dead, the celebration in Mexico. But before watching that movie, I actually didn't know that. So 3 months before the movie launched, my closest family member, my grandpa, passed away, and that was a very sad event for me. I was like very sorrowful for a very long time until I watched that movie. I was very surprised because death is a concept that most of the culture would perceive it as a pretty like negative concept. The Mexico culture could actually go through all those masks that the concept of death have and kind of get into the heart of it, which is pretty neutral, even positive. Basically, they believe that as long as you remember that person, the person is still with you. So I was like, wow, that's such a magical culture. I really want to go to that country to see what kind of land, what kind of country would nurture that culture. So I went to Mexico City in the end of 2017, and I visited the Blue House of Frida Kahlo, which is one of the most famous touristic attraction in Mexico City. When I was visiting there, I actually didn't know that much about her, except just knowing she's one of the most famous artists in the 20th century of Latin America. When I was wandering in her house, I saw a drawing. The name of the drawing is Viva La Vida. Actually, the name of the project comes from that drawing. So it's a drawing, very simple. It's just about watermelon. But the way she draw watermelon is so lively. It's like when you see the drawing, you smell the summer. So I was like, what kind of person could create such a drawing? I want to know more about her. And then I started to know that she experienced a lot of pain during her lifetime. And I was like, how can she actually channel all the pain and all the tortures she experienced in life using art and channel it into such a lively and lovely drawing? So I was like, it seems like art connect Frida Kahlo with her own life. So what connects other people with with their own life? And that's why I actually started to sit on the street and ask people to sit with me together and ask them a simple question, what is your life? And ask them to draw a picture to answer that question.
So what was the reaction in the first place when you asked them?
Yeah, it's not that easy. I mean, firstly, I don't really speak Espanol, so when I was on the street, I have to, use a lot of efforts to communicate with people. Actually, although I started a drawing project, but I myself is such a terrible drawer, so I can't even draw a poster. I actually created a presentation for 20 pages, and I print the presentation, and then I paste it in a huge black paper, and then I sit on the street, and then the police start to come and ask me to leave because they think I occupy the public space. But I was like, I just want to do it. I mean, I kind of negotiated with people, with the police there, and also people start to help me. So that day I sat there for almost 3 hours, and there were 70 people actually sit and draw for me, and then each of their drawing and each of the story behind the drawing is pretty amazing.
It's really impressive and kind of personal, right? It's your courage, your determination and curiosity started this. So I'm curious about how it got expanded to so many different countries, and how actually art could really connect people in your mind.
Yeah, sure. So the way it started to expand, actually, at the very beginning, I didn't do much effort. When I was doing the first street experiment of Viva La Vida, I didn't really think about it becoming such a huge, I don't know, like global art movement or organization. It was just simply an event or a street experiment that is out of my curiosity to know how people, or to understand how people understand life in a different way. But then because I really enjoyed it the first time, because I see when you ask people that question, people start to sit down, start to pause, start to think, and all those behavior they wouldn't actually have in their normal life, because everyone is so busy and they have all those small things occupying their mind, but then they kind of start to forget all those big picture and all those very deeply philosophical questions. So I started to enjoy doing this, and when you enjoy something, you just do it like without any other incentive. So I did it in San Francisco, I did it in all those cities I traveled to, like last year. I almost traveled to 10 different countries last year. And then gradually, because every time when I finished the event, I actually collected and scanned all the drawing I collected, and then I posted it in the website that I created. So gradually people start to look at the website and see, oh, this is a very interesting thing. I want to, sit down the street in my country and then collect their understanding of life as well. So people start to talk to me, and then they ask me to kind of like authorize them to do this event. So I start to help them, and I kind of make this project as an open source project. So whoever want to do it, you can do it. And then after you did the experiment, you would hand over all the drawing you collected, and I will put it on the website so that the website could kind of become an online gallery for people to view and perceive the life understanding from different culture. So actually, I think when I started to do it in the first time in Mexico City, because I don't really understand their language, I don't speak any Spanish, drawing actually become a way for me to actually connect and communicate with people there, because language is not universal, but then the image, the visual, the visualization of what you think could be universal. So I think there's a lot of time that I find out when people want to make a decision, or they want to, I don't know, like try to find the thing they really want. They think too much, but they don't feel enough. Meaning that there are a lot of different voices. The voices from, I don't know, like their parents, the voices from the social norm, like a lot of different things could influence them. But in the end, they forgot to actually connect with themselves and feel what they really want. But then art is not only about thinking. The art is actually more about feeling, the sensation. And thinking sometimes could deceive you. Like, for example, you think about the social norm and you think that's actually what you want, but that's actually not what you want. But then you think, other people doing it, and maybe that's the way to success. So you've got to connect with the authentic self. But when you do art, you try to feel, and feeling is always authentic. Like when you are happy, you are happy. Like it's not deceptive. So I think art, in some way, is a universal language, and also it kind of become a way for people to connect with their authentic selves, because that's a way of feeling. That's a way of sensation.
Oh, impressive. Drawing actually is a great way to connect with yourself in this way, right? So how could this whole project of drawing in Viva could help this person who actually draws, first of all, connect with him or herself, and that's what it explains, and then how to connect with others. Do you have any specific approaches in helping people to do that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, there's one thing I have noticed when I ask people to draw. So there's basically, I would categorize people into two different groups. One is like, let's say, kids of, I don't know, like under 15 years old, and another group will be like adult, above that age. So when you ask kids to draw, like they never reject you. They will take over the paper, start to draw, start to create, so happy. But then most of the time, because actually most of the participants I have in the Viva event, like I usually invite adults because they have life experience and I want to know, how they would summarize their life into one paper. And most of the time, let's say 95% of the time, when I ask an adult to draw, they would reject. They will say, "Oh, I can't draw. I don't draw well, or I don't really know how to draw to actually express myself." And then you would start to feel that it's not because of the technique, although not everyone know like perfectly how to draw, like the drawing technique, but it's not about that, because when you try to draw your life or draw yourself, it's not about the technique, it's about your understanding, your philosophy behind it, and you use the line that you feel the most comfortable with to express what's in your mind, what's in your brain, right? But then people are so afraid because they think that, oh, I couldn't draw realistically, people couldn't understand me, this is not perfect. So it's most of the time it's the fear itself that prevent people to actually start to express, start to draw. And for a lot of people, like at the beginning, they would reject me, and then I would insist on it. I would like, just draw something. It's not, you don't need to be perfect. You are not a painter. You are not an artist. Just draw whatever you feel like it. And then after a while, people actually start to draw. And then in the process of drawing, they still have some fear and vulnerability in their mind that they are fighting with. But in the end, when they finish the drawing, and they will say, oh, it's not a perfect drawing, it's not that realistic, but it's my drawing, it's my authentic expression. And I'm fine with it. I can take my vulnerability, I can take my imperfection, I embrace it. So I think most of the time it's actually a very good process for people to, try to recognize and try to embrace their own sense of imperfection and vulnerability. And based on that, because you have a very good understanding of yourself, you recognize your strengths, your weakness, you are more authentic to actually connect with people without any, let's say, stereotype of, let's say, the tag you have, your occupation, your social class. Without all of this, as a human, you start to connect with other people.
Interesting. You raised a very important word here, fear. I think today on social media or in real life, people are constantly talking about that. That's one of the major causes for depression, anxiety among not just young people, but different generations. So the question is here, when you invite people to draw, right, they must be coming from different ages, right? There are kids, there may be young adults, and maybe, older generations. So are there any kind of differences, interesting stories or stories related to when you ask people differently from different groups, they draw something differently when it comes to actually the picture they draw or the reaction they have?
There's definitely a lot of difference, but also similarity among groups. So I will talk about let's say the culture or the location first. We did a lot of events in different cities on the different culture all over the world. Like the first time when I did it in Mexico City, as we know, people from Latin American country, they are very creative. So they actually draw in very different ways, and you can see very strong cultural influence behind it. Like for example, there's a lot of people drawing heart in Mexico. The event I did in Mexico, but then when they draw heart, they don't draw heart in the way we usually do it, like the way like we draw like a peach, I would say that. But then people actually draw a real heart, like a human real heart. And I wondered that for a very long time why people actually did that. And in the end, I find out the reason is because of the Frida Kahlo. Because Frida Kahlo once created a drawing, there's like a real heart, but then there's flower growing out of the heart, and that's a very famous drawing of Frida Kahlo. And that's actually the flower flower grows out of that heart. It's actually a very famous flower in Mexican culture as well. So you could see like the drawing people have are highly influenced by their culture a lot. Also, I remember in Mexico City, the drawing people have, they include a lot of religious stuff. And as you know, Mexican people are highly influenced by religion, the Christianity religion as well. And you see some Maya and some Aztec element there as well. But then the second time when I was doing it in San Francisco, there's a wholly different picture. So I sat on the street of San Francisco in front of an art museum. I thought people in San Francisco, they are liberal, they are very creative, and they would draw for me a lot. But actually that day I didn't receive that many drawing, and most of the drawing I received actually talk about anxiety, talk about fear, talk about the uncertainty the uncertainty they face. Like for example, I remember there was a drawing, and the creator draws a dog, and he kind of saying that before I come to San Francisco, I thought this is my dream city, and I expect a lot from here. But then when I got to here, like I find out I kind of lose the sense of who I am. I don't know where to go, and I don't know what my future would be. And I just want to, be back with my dog, like things like this. There's a lot of drawing about this. And as we know, Silicon Valley is a city of high pressure. Like people compete a lot. Yeah, pretty competitive. And then people start to feeling like lost. People start to feel lonely. And then you see those elements in their drawing. So actually, at that time, I realized those drawings actually kind of become you feel the energy of the location through the drawing as well. Also, when we did it in Hong Kong, in Singapore, these two cities actually are very similar because they are kind of like a financial capital, and people there are pretty disciplined, and people there are in very fast paced. So they are not as, let's say, I don't want to judge, but they are not as creative as, let's say, for example, in the city of Buenos Aires or in the city of Mexico City, and they are pretty like uniform as well. So yeah, there's a lot of differences across the culture, but also because in Viva La Vida we have a global volunteer team, and there are a lot of engineers focused on image recognition and machine learning. So we actually did a research on the first 1,000 drawing we collected. Like when people talk about life, what element do they usually use? I think rank the top 3 are figure, like small, like people.
Figure?
Yeah, figure, small people, and also heart, I think, and also tree. So that is the top ranking 3 element people use. And also we kind of did a research on what keywords would people describe their life, because when we asked them draw on the drawing paper, we also asked them to write a sentence to describe their drawing. So I think we did research on 2 different groups. One group is people who speak English, another group is people who speak Chinese. And then I think love is kind of like a common topic. But in China, I think people talking more about positive things like love, happiness, like even how to say 治愈, like
being
healing, like healing, yes,
meditation thing.
Yes. But then in English speaking country, people are talking more about like sorrow, sad, or some more negative things. So we're still trying to figure out, because that's only 1,000 drawing. There could be some bias, but also I think that's a pretty expanding database to analyze a facet of our humanity that people haven't done yet.
That's already actually important to cause some attention among us, when everybody right now, or when we are dealing with people around us, sometimes the attitude could be positive, sometimes could be pretty and negative toward the view, right? So do you think in future projects in Viva, are you going to ask a different question? Besides what is life, ask people to join, or just based on what's really here, what's life?
Yeah, sure. I think the vision of Viva La Vida is not only to encourage people to reflect on their philosophy or understanding of life, but also I would use one word to describe Viva, which is authentic or authenticity. So let me tell you a story. So when I was doing the Viva event on the street of Havana in Cuba, so I met a pretty successful independent film director from from the UK. And then he started to ask about my project, and we started to talk about this for almost an hour. And then after an hour, I was like, okay, this is a drawing activity. So let's draw. So let's not talk, let's draw. So I hand over the paper to him. He started to draw. And then after a while, he's not really satisfied with his drawing. So kind of, he's not satisfied. He just threw the paper away, get another paper, start to draw again. After a while, he think it is not perfect as well. So he threw the paper away, got another paper. So in the end, he got 8 paper from me and draw 8 times and threw 8 times away off the paper. And then the 9th time he got another paper from me, he stopped drawing and started to stare at the paper for almost 10 minutes without doing anything. And then after the 10 minutes, he handed over the paper back to me and tell me that, Xiaoning, I really don't know what my life is. Actually, that moment touched me a lot because I'm sure if he's on the stage and I gave him a microphone, ask him the same question, he would have a lot of things to say. He would talk about his life philosophy, his life story for like 2 hours without stop because he know that's what people want to listen. He know, how to say things that people would perceive him as a successful person. But that day on the street, between us and we're doing the Viva event, and that kind of creates a virtual space for both of us. And when you enter the virtual space, you have to be authentic to yourself. You have to think authentically about what does life mean to you, and you have to express authentically as well. Even if you don't know, you tell me you don't know. And that moment, I'm sure it influenced me. I'm sure it might be a very influential moment for him as well. Maybe because, he experienced a lot of different things in his life, but he didn't really have a lot of chance to sit and actually think about that in a very pure and authentic way. So I would say for Viva, we would want people to be authentic, not only with other people, but also with yourself. Because the thing is, if you don't connect authentically with yourself, you wouldn't be able to connect authentically with other people. But then when you have a thorough understanding of who you are and what you want, that makes you more able to actually, connect with other people and interact with other people in a more meaningful way. So that's what we want to encourage. And that's why I would say we would not only ask people the question of what is your life, but all the aspect that we would think of, all that would be very important for us, not only life, but maybe like love, like truth, like beauty, all those different topics.
Being authentic is probably the most difficult, yet the most important in leadership. And in today's world, there are so many things blocking people to be able to be authentic. So, like for the example you just gave, right? Professionally and personally or authentically, there are 2 different masks. There are 2 different lives. So right now, like how important that is for people, especially maybe among young people around the world who are going to be the future enablers and leaders, how important for them to realize the importance of asking the question, what is who you are actually and what do you represent, this kind of question, and how would you in the future in this project in Viva would actually help people to do even more by helping them to be able to ask this kind of question.
Yeah, sure. I actually thought a lot about the way currently people connect with each other.
Yeah.
So for example, if we go on a social party, no matter it's in the Western culture or Eastern culture, we do have a role there, right? For example, you are an investment banker or you are a mother.
Have a label.
Yeah, you have a, not even label, but a role, because label sometimes sounds very, let's say, I don't know, like a bit negative. Let's say like a role, right? And that role kind of constrain what you can do and what you can say. And that's why most of the time when we were in a social occasion, we would have like a mask there because that's what the society requires us to do. And when you have a mask, you can only selectively choose what you want to present to people. Sometimes even that's not you and you need to fake who you are. But then I think it's very important for people to actually be able to see each other, like see through and to understand. And because only if you understand, you can start to change, right? You can start to make some very deep connection. I was thinking loneliness is, for a very long time, that is kind of like a theme of my life. So when I was a kid, when I tried to kind of think about the word of loneliness, my solution is to have more friends. So since I was very young, I have a lot of friends. And when I become kind of like, a young,
enabler.
No, like not even that, but like adult.
Yeah.
And I started to have relationship because I thought relationship could be like a cure for loneliness. But then, that couldn't work all the time. And then later on, when I become a natural science student, I realized that how tiny human are in the whole universe. And then I start to think in a human level, how lonely are we in the universe and what we can do. So I was thinking that everyone are so tiny, like every human are so tiny in the universe, and like we all seek for a company or the cure of loneliness, but then it's actually just among ourselves, just among like actually when you change your mindset, when you change your behavior, maybe we will just suddenly find the cure of loneliness. So I was thinking whether we could start to create a culture for people, create an occasion for people to be there. And once you are there, you also you don't have this assumption anymore that people in this social occasion also have a mask. And people all take off a mask themselves and become authentic self and become like a human, and you interact with each other on a human level. And then that is based on your thorough understanding of yourself, as well as your belief of other people being the authentic self as well. So I think a lot of offline activity we're doing right now, including some of the co-branding event with all those big brands, includes this part. But still, we're trying to kind of iterate the experience right now for us to add more psychological element and also artistic element into the experience itself, so that experience could be a popular experience among people.
Yeah, another keyword I found quite interesting as we go through this kind of topic, loneliness, like among young people, among everybody actually, among the groups. And loneliness is kind of like a disease, but could be a possibility to initiate something new, like a new possibility, like what Viva can get in to be able to help.
Yeah, actually, I had a theory. I read a lot about the concept of loneliness.
Yeah.
So I read a book called Committed, and it's written by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is the writer of Eat, Pray, Love as well. And in that book, she started to explore kind of like the starting point of marriage, and then she went to a very high mountain area of Vietnam. Yes. And there's like a village of people, and their behavior hasn't changed for thousands of years. So that's why you can actually see some beginning point of like how man can interact with each other. And then when she got there, she started to talk with a very high level, in a very high social class, like a grandma there, like the highest person there. She asked the question, do you think your husband is a good husband? And after hearing that question, the grandma suddenly starts to laugh, like, what are you asking me? Like, is my husband a good husband? No, I don't, like, we don't have a concept of good husband or not. My husband is just a husband. He's a person, like, he's husband is like a part of your life, but it's only
part
like
of your
a
life,
person.
kind of like part of your
Yeah, and then Elizabeth Gilbert, she realized that in that village, people still, like, for example, when they have like a huge house, like 30 people actually sleep with each other in the same place, and they connect with each other. And when you are as a person there, you actually have the connection with everyone, like your sister, your neighbors, or your sibling, like everyone there. And your demand of socializing or your demand of company are equally distributed and shared with all those different people. And you wouldn't feel that lonely, because, like, for example, when you have the desire to talk, you would find the sister, and when you have the desire to gossip, you would find your neighbor. It's equally shared. I was reflecting in our modern society, because we go into modernization, the urbanization, and we start to have this nuclear family, right? And when we start to have this nuclear family and live in the small, apartment in the huge city, we start to lose all those connection with other people, except that we have the significant other. And then people finally start to give all those expectations toward that one person. You want the significant other to become your soulmate. He needs to provide you the sense of security, the sense of curiosity, the sense of, you have all those different expectations onto one person. And then that's why actually in the modern society, we have the most problems between the intimate relationship because no one is perfect, right? You can't expect one person to be so, concentrating on all the things you want. So I think that's actually a very huge problem because humans are born and evolved to connect with a lot of people. And that's how we behaved in, millions of years. And because of the modernization, our environment changed suddenly. But the way we feel, the way we think, can't adapt in such a short time. So I think that's why Viva actually have a position to tap into in the society or in the market, because we kind of define how people should connect with each other, and we kind of recreate the chance for people to connect authentically, and you don't actually put all the expectation onto one person.
That's probably the most deep and engaging conversation that I had for the last couple of days, because the other day I was talking to a friend, also an excellent young Chinese millennial. He told me that, these days when millennials actually going to the parties and talk about what they represent, what project they're responsible for, we're not actually that successful. We should be in some way accept that our life is okay to be messy. A lot of people are having this fear of losing the connection, the relationship, because they are so much burdened with this expectation from everywhere, from society, from other parts. But it's okay to accept the fact that we're young on the journey of growing, we could be messy, it's okay, and it's as a part of life, the celebration of life. So I think that in some way, touched me, because society has so much expectation for young people right now, because they're supposed to be the leader, they're supposed to feel this roles expectation from family and the society. But how could young people, right, like a lot of the audiences that Viva are actually facing, to start accept that it's really okay to have a life and then not striving too hard, but alongside being authentic, alongside being, yourself and asking meaningful questions. How could they accept that this is part of a life? It's okay that you have vulnerability, and it's okay that you could actually just face publicly, this is just my life. And then that could be possibly a way to connect people more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so, I think it's just most of the time under the pressure, we look too much outside and outward, but we don't look inside and inward enough that we would understand ourselves. Because I think most of the time when you have the pressure, you deal with all those different things in your life, and that's very short term, that's very urgent, and you have to deal with it. But of the question of self-exploration and I would say like social emotional learning, that's more like a very long term thing, and people usually tend to ignore those aspects. But that's the aspect actually influence you a lot, or would have this incremental impact on your life. And I guess I want to share one last story that we had in Viva, which actually described the ideal society or ideal future Viva wants to create. So on the very second event I did for Viva, which was when I was in San Francisco, and as I sat in front of the Modern Art Museum in San Francisco, and I started to collect people's drawing. And that day was not that successful because people in San Francisco are pretty, they are pretty stressful, they are pretty fast-paced. Yes, so they don't really want to stop and draw for me. But then there was a guy, looks like a mix from Africa and Latin America, and he started to sit down and start to draw. And after a while, he gave me his drawing, which is like a fried egg and a cup of water and a head of a chef. So I asked him, what you are drawing, and he started to write the whole page about his story to me. So basically, he was saying that my name is Chef Jeff, and I was a homeless person 3 years ago. And at that time, I was also a single dad. So I actually wanted suicide every single day because life was so difficult at that time. I know no one in San Francisco, and I just couldn't find a way to survive. After a while, I think I just need to think it through whether I want to be alive or want to, just go die. And in the end, he decided to kind of save himself, and then he participated in a program that the government of San Francisco hosted to teach those homeless people how to cook. So after 3 years, which is the time I met him, he already became a pretty famous, well-known chef in the Bay Area. And he wrote a line there saying, "Do not give up," and put his email there. So I was pretty, amazed by his story, and I was pretty touched as well. So I told him that I would share your story to more people. And he actually asked me to share it to more people because he want more people to kind of, do not give up at the moment of desperation. So I put his story online. I remember him, and that was a pretty impressive story. But I never met him ever since. After that, and then I think almost 8 months after that, I received a WeChat friend request from him. So I was like, what? Because most of the people in America, they don't really use WeChat. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, where did you find me? And he said that a Chinese girl. A girl from China, she went on your website of Viva La Vida, and she saw my drawing, and she saw my story and my email. So she actually wrote an email to me, and we chat a little about my life story. So I was like, wow, that's beautiful. So how are you doing right now? And he said that, I'm doing pretty well. I cook for a church right now in California. And and he said the exact sentence, I can remember it pretty well. He said, "I want to thank you so much for just caring about me, my story, my passion for food, and how it saved me. The day I met you will forever stay with me." So after receiving that message, I kind of cried because that day when I met him in San Francisco on the street, I didn't really think, I'm doing something good for him or whatever. I was just out of my curiosity. I wonder what his life story is, and I care about that just on the very humanity level. Mm-hmm. And then he wanted to share about his story to more people because he want more people to insist on their dream, to do not give up. During the very hard time. And then that Chinese girl, she's also a very amazing person as well, because not all the people who see that drawing, who see that story, would actually write an email to that person to chat about his life story. So it kind of creates a very utopia community for people who actually care about each other as a human, to come together, to connect with each other deeply, to express themselves authentically. And I think that's what Viva would strive for in the future.
Wow, I would say your stories are the best example to share what is the human common spirit are about. Actually, I think among everything else, and especially we're talking about right now what's happening all over the world, from US, from China, from Europe, whatever that is happening, I think fundamentally there are common values shared across different cultures, no matter where you're from, who you are, what all walks of life, empathy, connectivity, and those authenticity, leadership, and what the meaning of life, all are very, very powerful tools. And I am so glad, and I feel like we're so glad to have found you, and also have you to share with our audience about these stories. This not just the stories. These are the common spirit that we want to share, and we want everybody to be able to understand that. Even we are living in a world with such a fast pace, but there are still people and are doing with their greatest passion and life mission, to make the world a better place. This is not something we try to give some chicken blood, 鸡汤, 鸡血, whatever, but it's truly about being human. So one last question for you, XIAONING. So what is life? What is in your eyes? What is life?
What is my life?
Yeah, you're basically answering the same question, even though I actually just let our audience know that I'm sitting with XIAONING right now, actually, in her beautiful home with all the pictures surrounding me and from all over the places, and the drawings from different cultures. It's quite amazing, fascinating, actually. But really, what is life that you would like to share with the world?
Actually, I did a Viva drawing myself because that's the project I created.
I will definitely show later in the links in the resource place.
I'm actually a terrible painter, but that doesn't matter. So I draw a ocean. And the reason I draw that is there's a few reasons. So the very the first layer reason is that I was born in Qingdao, which is the city that is actually close to the ocean, and I feel home when I smell the smell of the ocean, and when I'm close to the ocean, like I hear the wave patting the beach, I would feel like that's just home. I literally I just fell asleep on beach like for a lot of different times, but that's a very first layer reason. I think the reason of drawing ocean as my life is because firstly ocean consists of water, and I think water is the best state a person could be because water is the softest thing and it's the hardest thing, because water could assume any shape of the container, so it's pretty flexible, it's pretty soft, but also you can't cut the water, you just can't, you are not able to cut the water, so it's most very firm and very hard, not able to you are not really able to kind of prevent it. So that's the second reason. So I think that's like the best. Like in China, we say like women are like the water and the men are like the land. But I think every person are able to become the source of life. Right? Yeah, that's the source of life. And third reason, we talk about the source of life, and the source of life on Earth, because I was a biology student, is actually from the ocean. So it's from the hydrothermal vents under the ocean, and that's the source of life. So ocean for me meaning creation, and I think to create is kind of one of the most important life mission for me. So that's why I draw a ocean as my life.
Well, this is the best way to wrap up our show. Thank you so much, XIAONING. And I would like to say one more thing to our audience so I think in today's world, we are constantly living in a mode of changing, but it's super important to be able to connect with inspirational talent and people like XIAONING. So what is the best way to connect with you, XIAONING, online or offline? Of course, Viva La Vida is the website I'm going to put on our site, but in any other best way you encourage people to reach out to you? Yeah,
sure. If you are from Western country, you can find me on Facebook, XIAONING LYU, XIAONING LYU. So that's my name. You'll find someone with you will find me.
Or connect to how China works.
And if you are Chinese, if you want to talk more about Viva La Vida, you can add on my WeChat. So my WeChat account is STH0224.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Thank you, Ying Ying.